Dan, every time I come into the sanctuary, I either look left or right just to see our mission statement and our core values. I love being changed by God to reach all people, but I love biblical truth. Guided and shaped by God's word, man, that is so important. Outreach, all people matter to God. Relationships, all people matter to us. And teamwork, we are better together. As I look back over the history of the church, I really feel like wherever we've been, those things have been core values of our church.
Well, the Grove has been here pretty much since the start of Riverside, maybe give or take a few decades, but the people who are involved in the Grove are often the people in the city who are the most involved in making good things happen. So the Grove is Riverside.
The Grove all the way back to Riverside Union means so much to our family, and it meant so much to my grandparents who started there in the 1920s.
And it's just been wonderful coming to the Grove and seeing the spirit of Riverside Union Church is still here.
When you think of what a Grove is, it's a body of, it's an entity, it's a living and breathing and growing entity, that grows together, that grows up, that grows out, but most importantly, that bears fruit.
Well, I think one of my favorite parts of the core value is teamwork. As I think about from where we started in the tent and all the way up to where we are right now, we have so many faithful people that have just been here, and they didn't get flustered through any of the situations we went through with the finances or being delayed in building this building, but they've been so faithful. It amazes me that our church began here with a few hundred people in revival, and now it's over 6,000 people, It's amazing what God did here as he started something 100 years ago that I don't know if they could ever imagine what their faithfulness, what their vision for Riverside. They wanted to reach Riverside. I even hear from some of our people that on the first event, the first service, they had a missionary from China there, reaching all people, outreach. We want to, reach all people around the world. All people matter to God. And I just love that from the very beginning, this church has had an outreach focus.
When I walk this land with you in downtown Riverside, looking out Mount Rubidoux, knowing that mission ends right over here in the courthouse, to think that this guy had a heart for Riverside, that God put a desire in his heart to care for the city. It's a part of our legacy, because you have a heart for the city.
I do, so do you.
You've been here a long time.
Yes, I have.
And also, I've been in Riverside my whole life. And I think that's part of the Grove's legacy too, of God providing some pastors that really have a heart for the city as well. I wish I knew what the original evangelist was like who set up the tent. I'd like to think that he was a solid guy who loved the Lord and just wanted people to understand the gospel. That's how I choose to remember him. He could have been weird and God used it. Who knows? We're all a little weird and have our quirks. But when I picture it, I picture a man who sees a city developing, who saw people who didn't know the Lord, and in faith, he thought to himself, I'm gonna put up a tent and I'm gonna start sharing the gospel and see what God does with it. And to think that in doing that maybe he had the faith of a mustard seed, that it continued to grow, and God continued to bring pastors at the right time to care for this growing community to where now the Grove is where it is today. I'm just thankful for his vision, but more than thankful for the pastor, I'm thankful that God has had a heart for our city and provided people to share the gospel at just the right time.
So after the tent revival, after all those things, they wanted to come to a place in Riverside where people would know about Jesus. In fact, right over here was our church, and that right behind the church was this giant cross on top of the church that said, "Jesus saves." just reminds me of,
Awesome.
of what it means to them then, that Jesus is the only reason we're doing church, like we think about it today. And even the cross we have on the church that we presently have in our building, it is to tie in with our beginnings here at Riverside Union Church. And I love that part of it, that, you know, they're the same, have the same vision for the Riverside as we have, and I love that.
Yeah, and you can tell this is actually my first time putting together that our church was right here. I mean, the courthouse is right there, the jail's right behind us. To think that our church was right in the middle of the city to make sure they did their part in reaching people. Seems like our church has always been intentional to do that.
I was probably around 14 years old when I started my life really with the church here in Riverside. People were great, we had several hundred people, the sanctuary was full.
It was really family oriented. It was generational. And when we went to church on Sunday, it was like seeing aunts and uncles. And everybody called, my mom called the other ladies sister, and the men called the men brother, Brother Jones, Sister Jones, and all that. It was just like a big family.
In my family, all four of us kids, I'm the youngest, and then, but we all accepted the Lord at those altars, all of us. And my one brother, that's where they prayed for him, and that's where he accepted becoming a minister for the Lord, and he did 45 years of ministry. And we account all of that to Riverside Union Church, the Grove, the old Grove.
I remember when we left Riverside Union Church, we came over here because it was important for us to go to a place where the city was growing. We had property on Arlington and Streeter, and the elders said, I believe the city's coming this way. And so they swapped it, just like we swapped land later in our history. And this is where we ended up. By 1971, 72, man, it was a tough time for us. We had gone down to maybe 50, 75 people on the weekend, and maybe 25, 30 people on Wednesday night for our Wednesday night service. There was people talking about closing the church. And I know this from my mom and dad, is that there was a person in the church when we almost didn't have enough money to do anything, who sold their house, his family did, and they gave a giant portion of the proceeds to the Grove. And that's sort of what sustained us. And I remember thinking back on that, wow, this one family really believed in the mission of our church to reach Riverside, to evangelize the world, to do the things that God called us to do. It's been our history, our legacy, that we always want to reach people. And this family said that can't stop.
But you knew we couldn't stay here.
Knew we couldn't stay. Knew we had to move. I remember we went through a time of fasting as a staff, and we were just asking God what to do. And although everybody didn't agree with us, we believed that it was important for us to move. Moving up here was a step of faith for those who wanted to come. I remember coming up here and walking the property, and just in my mind being able to see what I believe God wanted us to do up here. And it was different than we've done before, but it was something that I just knew it was going to happen. During those times when we began to grow, and it was hard for me to believe some of the things that were happening here too. You know, in the Grove Village, that was something that God did that was, I mean, that was a miracle.
And things got tough in my second term around, on the issue of homelessness. What are we going to do? And who would they ask? Of course, they're going to ask the mayor. I mean, when you think of the government locally, you think of your mayor. Prayed about it, thought about it, and I stood up and challenged the church, because at one point there was a number that was thrown out there in the point in time count for Riverside in the city. 400 individuals, neighbors, who were without homes. So Pastor Lance was one of those individuals, those leaders that stepped up and said, we'll do it. We will, and not just one, but let's talk about 4. And that ended up being manifesting in the Grove Village.
The Grove stepped up and put housing on their property and brought people in. This is, to the least of my brothers in action, right? The Grove actually invited people who needed their help onto the property of the Grove, built these houses, give them the support, help them get job training, help them become financially literate, and so that when they exited and they left those homes, they would go back into the community and be not only good, productive members of our community, but also with that sense of gratitude.
When the students ask me, what's your favorite project? What's the best thing you did? I pick this up and I say right here, the Grove Village, a faith-based transitional housing program. That's what I say. There's nothing more important than loving God and loving neighbors, and it's done, both of those things are done right here at the Grove Village.
I still remember back in Riverside Union Church, Ray Morlock, our first missionary, Ray and Jesse Morlock, they were amazing. And as a little kid going to Mexico with my dad and being there where he was and seeing that and realizing, man, all these people are so poor, they don't have anything, and we can help them. And I began to see as a little kid, all people. And I think it's grown over the years. I think each pastor has helped the progress. What Daniel's doing now to me is amazing. With the portal and all the things we're doing, it's just unbelievable what we're doing right now. It's getting young people connected when they're, 5th, 6th grade into what they could do in missions. And now all of our young adults, even some of our senior citizens saying, I'm gonna stop what I'm doing, I'm retired, I've made enough, but I wanna go to the mission field and serve. That's just so beautiful. I really do believe that the greatest years for the Grove is ahead of us. I'm going to be happy to sit in one of these 2 chairs and watch you preach for years to come and just realize all the things God possibly will do in the future. I'm very, very excited about our future. Our past has been significant and wonderful, but our future, oh man, that's going to be awesome. And I look forward to you and the team and all the great volunteers God will be bringing here to lead us places we've never dreamed possible. And that's going to be a beautiful thing.
But I think we always have stuck to our faith and Bible-believing church, and the people, the core people have always been here, and that maintain the belief that the Lord will bless our church and continue it throughout the many years.
Again, I just wonder, man, did God give them any insight into that back in the 1920s, that someday, because of your faithfulness, these things are going to happen? That's why I love 1 Corinthians 13:12. Today I know in part, but someday I know in full. And I think when we get to heaven someday, these people are going to see the full extent of what they sacrificed back in the 20s and 30s and on to what we have today.
The Grove has just blessed this city, this community, this mayor, and this person beyond belief. And I'm grateful to Pastor Tom and Daniel and to all of the members for their service to this community.
I think that's really our heart. Walking this land makes me think about our theme verse this year going through Acts, in Acts 1:8, that Jesus tells his disciples, and you'll receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, all Samaria, to the end of the earth. And just to think that the original evangelist got that here. He's like, I just have to preach Jesus and people will come to know the Lord. And then a church was formed, just like in Acts. One thing I like being here is that the church didn't start with the building here. It started with the gospel. And then it turned into a church. And the building was never the most important thing. Our history is not one building. Our history is the mission of the gospel continuing to be shared. So whether it's our first location downtown or Victoria Community Church or now the Grove, the buildings are nice, but the mission's always what's driven us for the gospel to be shared and reach people in our city. And I think God has honored that. I think we both know our history is not perfect, but we see God's faithfulness to preserve this church, really to reach people in this city and around the world. And I'm thankful for it.